we've got our new office building just went up in Nashville, and we'd love to show you that. And of course, I'm like, yeah, but you know what I'd really want is good barbecue. And this guy goes, oh, I won't even take you to a restaurant for that. You're coming to my house, and I'll show you real smoked barbecue. And I was like, let's go.
I bet it's awesome.
He said it in a way like,
Yeah.
You know, when you're like when you run into somebody who does what you love to do, like there's just like this mantra they go into, like, well, we're not taking you to a restaurant. You come into my backyard, and then I'm going to really show you real Nashville barbecue.
Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah.
So, but, well, welcome everybody.
Here we are.
Officially welcome. We are here to talk more about Exodus, and not just Exodus, but we came from the last time I was here. I'm glad that the A team is back. Is it weird when I say it's the A team?
That's all right.
But so we were talking about like hardened hearts when I was here, but then you two delved into it even further with the Pharaoh and everything involving more, I think, heart of the matter was part of what you were talking about. And today, what do you got on tap for us today?
Well, we're going to go back to that because I've got a new way of thinking about it.
Okay.
We're turning the gym again.
Okay.
And the book that I want to recommend for everybody today, which we have not recommended through this whole time, which is kind of weird, is the Bible.
The Bible.
I would like to recommend the Bible. So we've got all these other books that I've been recommending people, but I invite people to really read. The struggle, I think, a little bit with some parts of our scripture, and especially this story with the plagues that we're going to jump into today, is there's so much repetition. And God said to Moses, go to that. And God said to Moses, go to that. And sometimes it can almost just lull us to sleep. And when that happens, we miss a lot of really not even nuanced stuff. It's just smacking you right in the face, but it's so repetitive. So if you could take 30 minutes, 40 minutes out of the day and read 6 through 12, say, of Exodus, even though there's repeated things, you're going to automatically see that there's some things that are different. And those differences are going to pop out to you, and then you're going to start asking questions like, what's going on here? Why is this description of this plague different? Why is Pharaoh acting differently after this plague, or those kinds of things? So I recommend the Bible for us every time. And we're going to go back into the strengthening of hearts, or the hardening of hearts.
Yep.
Hardening of Pharaoh's heart. I think there's 10 times from the moment God speaks to Moses at the burning bush to when the people leave Egypt. There's 20 of them saying hardened hearts. 10 of them are Pharaoh doing it, and 10 of them is God doing it to Pharaoh. So I read a very interesting take on this as well. Again, I keep reading. There's a reason why there's so many takes, because people are trying to figure this out.
Right.
Really smart people. And the question is God hardening Pharaoh's heart, or is God strengthening Pharaoh's heart? And it's very much the same, but when we look at it, we can look at it as hardening. And of course, the version I use all the time is the NRSV, and it says hardened.
So before you get into that, what do you mean is God strengthening versus God hardening?
Yeah.
Let's get a little bit of definition.
If we're coming at it from Pharaoh's point of view, his heart is being strengthened, And I'll tell you what all that means in a little bit.
Okay.
From our point of view, he's hardening his heart, because we're on the side of the Israelites. We're
Right.
not on Pharaoh's side.
So could we equate hardened with stubborn?
Very much so.
Okay.
But even more than that. So in Scripture, lots of organs or locations of the body are given attributes. So a lot of times a prophet will say something like, I am crying, my bowels are crying with anguish, like Jeremiah says that. The gut, this part of our body, our torso, our gut area, was thought to be responsible for really strong emotions. We still do that to this day. I've got a gut feeling about this. We say that. My gut's telling me. My brain's not telling me, but my gut's telling me this. And we still use that in our conversation to this day. Our liver area is like a lamenting area. I mean, this is the area that was considered to be when someone really lamented, like my liver is spilling out on the ground. That,
I'm sorry, that one's new to me, but
there are a lot of new
but
stuff.
I like that. I'll look that
The
up.
kidneys are a place where you have tormented decisions. It's a place where God would probe to find out what really is going on. And that's a kidney piece. The heart was considered the place where you controlled your actions. Not your brain like we do now, but it was here. Like this controlled your thinking. This controlled all of that. So it wasn't necessarily the heart that we think of today when we, I can't even do the little heart thing. Like put your hands together or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm horrible at it. I do this. Yeah, something like this. Yeah. So then that makes a lot of sense here. So in Egypt, Pharaoh was the living representative of deity. He represented a living deity. He was a god. And Pharaoh's word was law, but Pharaoh's will was law too. And when Pharaoh hardens his heart, let's say, he is living his will. This is my will, and no, I'm not going to relent. Someone like a stubborn. I'm not going to relent. This is my will. I have decided I am the living deity in the world, and I've decided, and this is the way it's going to be. So when God is attributed to hardening or strengthening, some would say, Pharaoh's heart, what God is doing is God is saying, you think you control your will? I control your will. Pharaoh no longer can control his own will. And for a deity, that means you're no longer a deity. You're not a god if some other god can control your will. You have no power if someone can control your will. And that is one way of thinking about it. For Pharaoh, it's strengthening his will. For Moses, for you and I who are on the side of the Israelites, he's hardening his will. So just a different way to think about it. But in the end, this one way of thinking about it is, you think you're in charge of your own will? No, you're not even in charge of your own will. And then they're going to go into all these different plagues.
I think that's interesting. The whole time the thing that I had in my head is like that. Then a change of heart's a big deal, a big deal back then, considering all of our thoughts and process was coming from our hearts. So a change of heart would be just in a very large thing.
Yep. And for Pharaoh, for God to say, I won't even let you change your heart. That's how much in charge I am of you. It's almost like a mocking. You think you are in charge of everything? No, I'm in charge. So, and this is this whole battle that's going on. When when God comes to Moses and says, this Pharaoh, he's not going to just roll over. He's a very powerful man, and it's going to take someone even more powerful. When God says, I'm in charge of your will, you think you're a God? When Yahweh's in charge of your will, now you realize you're not a God anymore. So that's another turning of the gem around hardening of hearts.
Cool.
So then we're going to get to the plagues. We're going to do 9 plagues today. I mean, we're not going to experience them.
Yeah, it's like we're just talking about this, right?
Somebody's going to open the door and throw a frog in here. That would actually be quite funny.
Actually, I like a frog.
Yeah. And there's a rhythm to them until we get to plague number 7. And plague number 7, things start to change. And we're going to walk that through 7, 8, 9, and then we're going to leave 10 and the exit and the Passover and Exodus and all that for another week. So let's talk about the plagues. When everybody talks about the plagues, we talk about them, I think, in 2 different ways. Did they really happen in time and space? I mean, did this really happen in history? Or people say it's just a bunch of hooey. That proves to me that there is no God, because really, there's no archaeological dig that's going to produce evidence of the plagues. So people have been coming at this thing in different ways for a long time. I even watched this on History Channel or National Geographic Channel, I can't remember, years and years ago. But it was a fascinating take on the plagues. And it kind of goes like this. During that time period, there was a major flood. And that major flood then brought all of this silt into the water, which made it undrinkable. And it choked and killed all the fish in the river. And those fish then rotted. No one could eat them. And that gave rise to a natural phenomenon that happens in that part of the world during a certain part of the year, which is a lot of frogs then would appear. Like they would spawn, tons of frogs. And then after the frogs, let me make sure I get all the order in place here. After the frogs, then you would get, and they would die, and then you'd get these gnats or these little bugs that would feed off all of these frogs that are laying around dead. So that, then a natural progression of things that happened, and then flies came. And then after the flies, of course, there'd be biting flies that would be transferring all kinds of diseases to all the cows and the cattle in the field, like they're diseased. So when they, it's like Zika virus or I can't believe what's the mosquito borne? Malaria. Or whatever. And so all of these, and then people would get bit and they would form boils. And then there are moments in the natural cycle of hail coming. And then there are moments, natural cycles of locusts. And locust swarms are still a big deal in the world. And then there's a natural cycle of darkness, which would be a sandstorm in that part of the world, where you literally couldn't see anything. The last one, though, is the hardest to explain in terms of the death of the firstborn. So there have been people that have been trying to explain all these plagues as natural occurring things that either naturally occurred and still do occur in that part of the world, or led to the next, led to the next, led to the next, led to the next. It's fascinating. And as someone who's curious about all kinds of things, it's very interesting to listen to. Very smart people trying to figure this out. Here's what I'm I think that's fun to think about. But I'm not really concerned. I'm less concerned about the history lesson of Exodus. I'm less concerned about trying to find an archaeological dig about the plagues in Exodus. What I am a lot more interested in, and why it survived in our scriptures and in our story, is the theological issues that are going on during all of these kinds of things. That's what makes me really curious. And learning to trust the story of what's going on in this story, regardless of what, National Geographic or History Channel would have to say. Faith to me is I don't need somebody to dig something up in order for me to go, oh, see, there was a mammoth, however many years ago. But the theological point of view is what I'm getting at. I would say most of the rabbis that I've read on this, they also say the same thing. This is a book of ethics. This is a book of theology, the book of Exodus. Whether or not they all happen in time and space and history and all that kind of stuff, well, we just don't know. But we can learn from this story and trust the story. So that's kind of where I am with all that, and people can argue about the history of it all, and I'm coming out of that. I don't want to be in that argument. I don't need to be right about that stuff. What I want to do is I want to learn theologically. What is God doing in the midst of all this, and how do people react to what God is doing? So, couple of things that we may not see when we read these is that this is both Aaron and Moses. Moses comes basically representing a living deity, basically. Not Jesus, but, Moses is pretty up there. Aaron comes as his assistant. And the very first plagues, Aaron is the one that does them. And Aaron then does them, and nobody's impressed because Pharaoh also has an assistant or assistants, and they're called magicians. And so the magicians can do everything that Aaron does. You're going to see Aaron leave the story as the one that's acting, and then God and Moses take over. And at the same moment, you're going to see the magicians leave the stage too. So once the battle gets to a point to where the assistants can no longer assist, they're no longer needed, they both go away in the story basically as a primary actor, and it becomes Pharaoh versus God. So that's really important. And then last week we talked about the staff. Pharaoh has a staff, and Moses has a staff. And God, the first thing that God tells Moses, go, I'm going to throw your staff on the ground, and it's going to turn into a snake, and that's going to prove to Pharaoh that we're serious. Well, Moses does this. Two magicians throw their staffs on the ground. They become snakes, as to say, whoop-de-doo, we can do this too. Who are you people? The thing we don't see, and it's almost like when Pulp Fiction came out and you saw the end of the movie before you got to see the beginning of the movie. I mean, it was flashbacks here or there, and you weren't really sure where you were in the story until it all made sense. That's kind of what this is. Because what happens with those two snakes, or three, the one for Moses and the two magicians, is the Moses snake swallows the other two. So what God is saying is, we're going to go through this whole battle, but I want you to know, my staff, the staff of Shalom, which we talked about on Sunday, the staff of a shepherd, which Moses was, the staff that's used to protect and save, is swallowing the staff of empire, swallowing the staff of persecution and dominance and oppression. It's so poetic. God's like, okay, we're going to start here. My staff is going to eat your staff. Okay, we ready to go? Do we need to keep going? And of course, Pharaoh isn't ready, anywhere close to being ready. But that's what happens. That's what happens at the end. You had to go through all these 10 plagues in order to get to what happened right at the very beginning. God says, I'm going to eat you.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you for lunch. I'm going to have you for lunch, man. That's another kind of saying. And it's just a premonition. And we almost look over it because staffs and snakes and whatever, all that kind of stuff. Is it magic? What? So it's a premonition of what's coming. So we're going to run quickly through the first 6 plagues.
Okay.
Then we hit 7. We're going to stop and we're going to go. There's something going on here, but there's a pattern in here. It's not a chiasm, but it's a pattern.
Right.
So the plague number 1 is the water turns to blood. Not only the river, but every vessel, every well turns to blood, and no one can drink it. So who does this? Aaron does this. Is there a forewarning? There is. God warns Pharaoh. When does it happen? It happens immediately after Pharaoh warns, or God warns Pharaoh. When does this happen? It happens in the morning. God says, go in the morning. Is there a location? Yes, go stand by the river. There are several interesting things or interesting moments when God says, go to the river. Pharaoh is going to the river. Go meet Pharaoh at the river. It's interesting. Moses was plucked out of the river. Mm-hmm. So the very maybe area that Moses was plucked out of the river is where Pharaoh and his people are going every morning to bathe or whatever they're doing.
Right.
So it's interesting. And in this one, there is no direct, implicit instruction that the Israelites are free from this calamity. Now, we can think that they're free from this calamity because you would think that, well, God's not going to not get them water, right? But there isn't a specific, no one is set apart from this issue or this plague. And so you can think that everybody's suffering.
Yep.
Although Pharaoh's not impressed because the magicians can do this too. The magicians, with their secrets, is what they say in Scripture, they can turn water into blood. And there are some really old Egyptian manuscripts that talk about water being turned into blood. So Pharaoh's not impressed at all. Zero, not impressed. Who cares? The second one is frogs. Who does this? Aaron does it. Is there a forewarning? Yep, he gets warned again. Pharaoh does. Doesn't tell you what time of day. But when does it happen? It happens immediately, just like the first one. Immediately happens. It's not, God says, Aaron, stretch out your hand over the land, and Aaron does, and boom. There's no time connected to it. It's immediate. Who's set apart from this? We don't have, the Scriptures don't let us know that the Israelites also didn't, that the Israelites also suffered from these frogs. Maybe it's implied, but it doesn't say it. And Pharaoh's not impressed because the magicians can do the same thing.
Right.
Now, this is interesting because I don't think Moses knows how many plagues are coming. I mean, this is pretty bad. The river into blood, that's really bad. a bunch of frogs everywhere. That's really bad. So in this plague, Moses does something weird. Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, hey, this is bad, but I'll pray for you. I'll pray to God to take these frogs away. Do you want me to do that? There's a dialogue that's starting to happen. And Pharaoh goes, yes, I want you to pray tomorrow. So Pharaoh, and we're going to get into some really interesting things about what the magicians can or cannot do, what gods can or cannot do, or what gods, plural with a small g, are believed to be in charge of. And part of the issue that we're going to see, it's not just power that God, that Yahweh, I'll just use Yahweh, that Yahweh or Elohim uses, it's also precision. None of these natural disasters or none of these things that ever happened in the history of Egypt happened on time. They just happened. And then people go, oh, the God of the frogs sent us frogs. What did we do wrong? So we're going to start seeing some precision, not just the power. So Pharaoh goes, okay, you want to pray to your God? I'm going to give you time. Let's prove to me. Tomorrow. So Moses goes and he cries out. He cries out to God, just like the Israelites did. Mm-hmm. Cries out to God, and the next day all the frogs die. They all die. And shows not only the power, but the precision of Yahweh.
Yeah.
Now the magicians could not do this. The magicians could not pray to Pharaoh or to the frog god, and the frog god go, okay, tomorrow. So we're starting to see there's a difference in Yahweh that Pharaoh doesn't know. The third one is going to get even worse, and it's going to really push these magicians. Is that there are a bunch of gnats or lice. There's if you read, there's three different lists of the plagues. One list is in Exodus, of course, and there's two other lists in the Psalms, mm-hmm. and they're not the same list. So I always tell people, is the Bible is it without error? Well, which list are you going to believe? So we're in Exodus, so we're going to go with Exodus.
There is an Egyptian god of frogs.
Yeah. Heket. There you go.
I had to look that up real quick.
Yeah, there's a god for all these things.
Yep.
So the next one is lice, gnats. Who does this? Aaron does. Is there a forewarning? There's not a forewarning at all. And when does it happen? It happens immediately. They're not told to go to Pharaoh in order by the river. We don't know who's set apart in this. We don't know if the Israelites suffer from the same lice or gnats or whatever. We just don't know. And then Pharaoh's magicians go to Pharaoh after the third plague and says, you need to stop. This is the finger of God. The magicians know how far they've been able to go, and they're like, we're in uncharted territory. This is not magic. This is a power beyond anything we've seen. This is by the finger of God. And so you start to see there's cracks in the armor. People are starting to peel off from Pharaoh. The next one is flies. And this one is attributed directly to God. Aaron is no longer doing any of this stuff. The magicians are done. They've seen something that they can't do. They're out of it. There is a forewarning. They go to Pharaoh and say, let the people go. And if and it happens in the morning again. They go to, and it happens immediately, and they go to Pharaoh who's standing by the river. And this plague is the one that's that begins to explicitly exclude the Israelites. All the other ones, the first three, they don't tell you if this is hurting the Israelites or not. You can assume probably not, but God says that Goshen is where the Israelites are living, is going to be spared, not only so that Pharaoh would know that he was Yahweh, but that the Israelites would now begin to believe that now they're set apart from everything.
So so it's the insects one that we're running into where they're not affected, or is it?
The insects one is where they're not affected. So 3 and 4 are very similar. Like one's lice,
Yeah.
or gnats, and then the next one is like insects or flies.
Yeah, that's wild that that's when they first mention it. Not, I mean, you would think if you is there specific wells that the Israelites are charged of using?
Yeah.
Because if it's the entire river, I mean, is there a bay in the river that the Israelites are primarily? I mean, I've got questions, but it's not mentioned either.
It's not mentioned. I mean, you could say that they've been spared this whole time, but this is the first one where they're explicitly spared, and it's not only so that the Egyptians know that this Yahweh is God, but that the Israelites do. So they're set apart, and the flies are everywhere. And Pharaoh then does something weird. Pharaoh goes and asks Moses and Aaron to pray to God, and if the flies are removed, then Pharaoh will let them go. And again, there's a precision added to it, to the power, and it's the next day, it's tomorrow. And Moses prays, the flies are taken or removed, it says, and now Pharaoh's integrity is in question. Not just he's a jerk and evil and whatever else. His integrity, because he has said, if you do this, I'll do my part, and he doesn't do it. So he lies. Now he's a liar. Plague number 5, pestilence. Again, this is attributed straight to God. Doesn't use Moses or Aaron to do this. There's a forewarning, and the warning is, again, tomorrow. Precision. And then again, the Israelites are specifically then set apart. They're prevented from all of this. So we start seeing that pattern happen then too. And out of this pestilence, which kills everybody's cattle and sheep and goats and whatever else except the Israelites, it's very interesting. God says to Moses, go take some ash, and in front of Pharaoh, doesn't say the water anymore, the river, but somewhere in front of Pharaoh, throw this ash up into the air. I almost imagine like LeBron James and those guys at NBA, they just do this and they throw it into the air.
Kevin Garnett was the first one.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
The great Minnesotan Timberwolves.
It's something like some visual like that, right?
Yep.
And then all of that spreads, and they get boils. And for the first time, we read about there are people close to Pharaoh that are affected. The magicians even get the boils. So now all of this is coming closer and closer to the personal Pharaoh. His everything's been, about the Egyptians and maybe not in the palace, but it's beginning to get really close to him. Now, here's the unique one. Here's number 7. And this is where we're going to stop, because I'm going to read this whole text.
Okay.
This is the most unique among all the plagues. It's number 7, which is a number. 7.
It's one of them odd numbers.
It's odd numbers, which makes me wonder what the 4 was.
Insects.
Yeah, and Pharaoh asks Moses for the first time to pray, because 4 would be the center of 7. if we wanted to turn that 7 into chiasm.
I know. I'm trying to think of how that. I mean,
That
it
might
is the
not-
it's also the first time he lies and things.
It's the
get
first
ramped
time he
up.
lies. Yeah. I don't know.
First time he asks.
we
and
might
first
have-
time he lies.
We might have something there. We might want to write something on that.
Yeah, there's something there.
Yeah.
There's a chiasm happening.
All right, we're going to read number 7 because it gets really interesting. Then Lord said to Moses, rise up early in the morning and present yourself before Pharaoh and say to him, so this is something else that's interesting. Early in the morning, the sun is rising in the east.
Mm-hmm.
For most of these religions, you look to the east. That's where God awakes, in the east. And Egypt, Ra, the Pharaoh, is the sun god. So right as the sun is coming up, where everybody's thinking about all the other gods, here comes Yahweh and breaks into that pattern of that. Rise up early in the morning, present yourself before Pharaoh, and say to him, thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, El or Elohim, let my people go, so they may worship me. Now, this is also interesting. Every single time there's a request or a statement, God is not asking Pharaoh to let the people go forever,
Mm-hmm.
to escape, to go, like to leave, never come back. He's asking Pharaoh to let them go and just simply worship. Pharaoh won't even relent because Pharaoh is the only one in Egypt that should be worshipped. When we read "Let My People Go" and we turn it into camp songs or whatever, we think, oh, he's asking them to go out into the desert and spend 40 years and then go to the promised land. No, they're not asking that. It's a battle of gods. Who is going to be worshipped? Is it the God of Shalom, as we talked about on Sunday, or is it the God of Empire? And Empire just simply will not relent and let the God of Shalom be worshipped. So I don't think we can overstate that too much. And this is what God said: for this time I will send all my plagues upon you yourself, not just the people.
Right.
I'm coming after you, Pharaoh, and your officials, and then upon your people, so that you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth. For by now I could have stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, and you would have been cut off from the earth. Instead of getting all the animals with pestilence, you could have gotten them with pestilence. The plague, the bubonic plague, could have killed them all. But this is what he says: but this is why I have let you live, to show you my power and to make my name resound through all the earth. You are exalting yourself against my people and will not let them go. You are being their God and you're not their God. And this is very interesting. God says, tomorrow at this time, ultimate precision. No God would ever promise tomorrow at this time. And you
Right.
would never expect a God to go or to pray to God and go, tomorrow at this time. God says, tomorrow at this time, I will cause the heaviest hail to fall that has ever fallen in Egypt from the day it was founded until now. Then he does this interesting part. He gives them a chance. Send therefore and have your livestock and everything that you have in the open field brought to a secure place. Every human or animal that is in the open field and is not brought under shelter will die when the hail comes down upon them. God is giving them a chance to get out of the way.
How far is this plague removed from the one prior to that? Because the one prior to, I just find the wording interesting, because in the plague prior to this, livestock was killed.
Yeah.
So now moving into this one,
Yeah.
the warning is bring your livestock in.
Could have been months.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
we
Yep.
don't know the timeline.
There was
Yep.
we don't know, there isn't like a this happened today, the
Yep.
next day and the next day. This
Yep.
is a over a period of time
over
where
a
there
period of
could
time.
be more livestock. So
Yep.
the food source is being threatened once again.
Once
which
again.
is very important.
And it's gonna go very quickly from this point. And he gives them a warning. It gives them a chance. For those who now believe, you know what's coming, and you can believe and trust me that tomorrow, 24 hours from now, this is going to happen. You can save yourself. So, those officials of Pharaoh who feared the word of the Lord hurried their slaves and livestock off to a secure place. So some officials are starting to believe that this is really a God way more powerful than Pharaoh is. But not all of those. The Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward heaven so that the hail may fall on the whole land of Egypt, on humans and animals and all the plants of the field and the land of Egypt. Then Moses stretched out his staff toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and fire came down on the earth, and the Lord rained down on the land of Egypt. There was hail with fire flashing continually in the midst of it. There's ice with fire in it. Okay? Such heavy hail has never fallen all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. So we have a couple things. We have precision. 24 hours from now, you got to get out of the open. Save yourself. I'm giving you a chance. The warning. And then fire and ice together. In impossibility. Fire and ice, their gods, would never work together. They have absolute opposite goals. And if there's any entity that can control both fire and ice at the same time, it is the entity that created fire and ice. So what God is doing in this hailstorm is saying, I am the creator of all things. I can make the impossible possible. Look at what I'm doing, and I can do it at the time of my will, of my choosing. It is a complete. Pharaoh will be done after this, but God then says, I will harden your heart. His heart is hardened. You can't even prevent this, Pharaoh, anymore. I am now going to control your will. I am now going to control the forces that of fire and ice together. I mean, it's just cosmic. It's mind-blowing for anybody to think that you could do all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But only in the land of Goshen, there where the Israelites were, there was no hail. So again, they're set apart. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron, said to them, and this is what he says. He goes, this time I have sinned. The Lord is in the right, and I, my people, are in the wrong. Pray to the Lord. Enough of God's hail and thunder. I will let you go. You will stay no longer. And then, but then his heart gets hardened or strengthened. His will is taken away from him, basically.
Yep.
And then we have, and there's the hail. It tells you what the hail destroys. Some of the crops are grown enough that the hail destroys them. Some of the crops are just basic little seedlings. They haven't gotten anywhere, so that those crops are still alive. Guess what's coming next? That's going to eat everything. The locusts.
The locusts.
The locusts come. Is there forewarning? Yes. When is it going to happen? The next day. And they come. Moses and Aaron tell them this, and they leave. They mic drop it. They say, this is coming tomorrow. And Pharaoh's officials lobby Pharaoh to let the people go. You can't imagine. First, there was a magician saying, hey, we're done. We can't do anything. It's like me going to a basketball coach and I'm trying to guard Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got nothing. It's going to be really bad. Like, it's going to be bad. Let's not do this.
Yeah.
And then you have the officials who, some of them take the warning, and then other officials, it might be the same ones, they lobby Pharaoh. They go, come on, man. We got to be done. It's enough. Enough is enough. Let's just let them go. Are they really worth that much trouble? So Pharaoh brings Moses and Aaron back and says, all right, I'll let you go worship. Who are you going to take? Who's going to go with you? And Moses tells Pharaoh that they're all going to take everybody. We're all going to go. The old people, the women, the children, the young people, we're all going to go. And Pharaoh goes, oh, wait a second. You can't take your kids. If you take your kids, if you take the future, basically is what he's saying. If you take the future, we're going to be in trouble. So then Pharaoh goes, nope, not going to let it happen. And it's not going to work. So then the locusts come. It's like, we told you it was going to happen. Locusts come and they eat everything. Okay. Then Pharaoh calls Moses back and asks Moses to pray so that God would take away the locusts. Moses says, sure, I'll do it. Moses prays. God takes the locusts away, and then God strengthens or hardens Pharaoh's heart. And you have to imagine, if you are in Egypt, or if you can get anywhere close to Pharaoh, you got to be going, what is wrong with this guy?
Mm-hmm.
I know you're sun god or whatever, but you're getting beat. You're getting whooped.
Well, and Pharaoh at the time, and this is something that I think is interesting that's not as spoken as much about, Pharaoh is a deity to his followers.
Yeah.
But what God does is humanize Pharaoh.
Yep. Because Pharaoh's not God.
So you're like, look, you're clearly not a god. You're just a guy, and you're making poor choices.
Yep.
So now he's humanized, which has got to just like, if like a human with an ego that has been told from however long that they're a god.
Yep.
I mean, yeah. I also find it interesting that it's such a pattern. Plague, ask, pray, plague, ask, pray. It's almost like, okay, well, I can get rid of the problem if I just ask. Instead of me praying, I'll just ask Moses to pray, and then it's just a cycle that. But the thing that's different is each one of these plagues get incrementally worse.
Oh yeah, and Pharaoh, as you said, being told who he was his whole life, it's like, a kid, like an emperor, being born and being told that he's a deity of the people, and then when they find out they're just normal, there's no extra power there other than the power that the people give him. And what's going on, what you said is so great. He's being humanized. The people are no longer just taking his word for it. His will is no longer, it's being questioned. Mm-hmm. Maybe for the very first time. And not just like in back hallway conversations. Because, you got to believe that through the history of the Egyptians and all their living deities, you got to believe that there's people in backroom conversations going, I don't think Jimmy's the real one. I think we ought to get Johnny in there. The power play that goes on between all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I don't know a lot about Egyptian history, but the amount I do know is it's a bloody history, especially for Pharaoh.
And which son gets the next up and which one doesn't. And
isn't there like a whole thing about This could be the Hollywoodized version of this story, but isn't there something about Moses being a adopted son of?
So yeah, so when he gets pulled out of the river, Pharaoh's daughter basically adopts him. And the amazing thing is that Moses' mother is chosen to be his nurse. Like, so that all gets set up. So the family isn't necessarily split up. We don't know what's going on with Aaron at that time, but Aaron's older. Aaron's 3. It says in Scripture, Aaron's like 3 years older than Moses. But yeah, so he becomes a prince. He becomes a part of that royal family. Now he'll never be way up there because everybody knows
the background.
Yeah, but yeah. So there's.
But he knows the Pharaoh he's dealing with probably from being around him.
He either knows. Well, it actually says the Pharaoh. He runs after he kills a guy who was abusing a slave. He runs, and then that Pharaoh dies, and a new Pharaoh comes into power. And that's when God says, hey, you can go back to Egypt because they've stopped looking for you. But he knows the system. He knows what's going on. He lived it. He breathed it. He knows the intrigue. He knows all that stuff. And he knows that Pharaoh's not God. And you can imagine there's a lot of people in the palace that, no, this guy is not God.
Probably the magicians.
Well,
they probably all have a strong idea because they're the one doing the magic or illusions.
Yeah, and the people that are propping up Pharaoh, they're benefiting. They get power from propping up Pharaoh. They get power, not power that Pharaoh has, and they probably live in a little bit of fear because if Pharaoh gets mad at them, then it's over. But they have power because they're in the palace. They prop them up. So. But it's interesting that it keeps getting to where Pharaoh goes, I have sinned, we're in the wrong. And God says, but I'm still in charge of your will.
Yeah.
I'm still in charge. Come back, don't do this thing. Go. And then the last plague is darkness. Like the last one, the last one for today.
Mm-hmm.
The ninth one is darkness, and I think it's even said in Scripture, it wasn't that the sun was blotted out, but the darkness was so thick that you could even touch it, like you could touch darkness, and I think that'd be pretty scary. And Pharaoh then goes and says, "Hey, okay, take everybody, you can go worship." But you can't take your animals. And Moses says, we got to take our animals because we don't know what we need. We're going to be out there for 3 days. We don't know what we need. We don't know what we need to sacrifice to our God. We don't have any idea. It's just so like Empire just can't let go. They got to extract something from you. We'll let all the men go. Leave your kids. We'll let all you guys go. Leave your livestock. Just let them go. Just open it up and just go. Let them go. You would think that would be like, it's it. Just go. Get out of here. We'll see you in 4 days. How about you take a week? Just take a week. Yeah, come on back in a week. We'll see what happens. When you come back, we'll have some food out for you, and we'll probably try to clean up the place a little bit. There's a couple flies still flying around somewhere. But
frog legs for everybody.
Frog legs for everybody. There's pretty good. It's like big ones, and I'm off at a whole different deal. And so then again, God hardens his heart or strengthens his will or uses his or overtakes his will and is prevented from using his free will. And then we get to the very last one, which we'll pick up next week.
Perfect.
But go back and read the story from Exodus 5. Yeah, around Exodus 5. Because this is what God says God's going to do from the very, very beginning. Israel is your firstborn. He goes, Israel is my firstborn. If you don't do this, I'm taking your firstborn. You've taken my firstborn. I'm going to take your firstborn. And it's interesting, and we'll pick up this next week as well, is that after the darkness, God goes to Moses and says, okay, there's one more coming. After this, it's over. You guys are going to get out of here. It's a guarantee. So go to your neighbors and ask them for all their stuff. So they go to their neighbors and they're saying, hey, we're getting out of here. We're leaving. Do you have any gifts for us? You know, like you just got whooped so bad that you're going to give us all your gold and all your silver. So they end up leaving Egypt packed with wealth because these Egyptians are like, you're leaving? Sweet. Here, take this along your way. And they leave unbelievably wealthy, which is why they can build this elaborate tabernacle with all the gold and all the robes.
That is a weird... I don't know why I had not ever tracked that one before out of all of them, and then they leave with wealth. But, I mean, and that's, you know, like giving your wealth, sacrifices, that's not unknown to that part, to their religion either. Commonly probably getting like, getting... giving up gold and things to Pharaoh and sacrifice like that way. So they're probably like, look, your deity, I don't know what's going on with Pharaoh, but like I'm not pissing off your God anymore. Take what you need.
They're like, we haven't been in the meetings.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we haven't had a say, by the way. I voted, but my vote did not count.
No one cares what we think.
Right.
But if you're leaving, sweet.
Yeah.
Here you go. So, and then we'll hit the last plague. Then we'll go through the Passover, all that kind of stuff. The last plague, the Passover, and then we'll take we'll follow the story through the roundabout way that they take to either the Red Sea or the Reed Sea, R-E-E-D. Mm-hmm. There's some controversy around that, and of course, you know, Pharaoh sends himself and his army after them because he still can't let go. He still cannot let go.
That's something like, I mean, the through line that I kind of see, you know, is, and I argue to this day, I think this is like, you think about Pharaoh and the repercussions now of this particular story in the Bible. Because sometimes I hear a lot, this is the part of the Bible too where I sometimes forget about the story aspect of what we're, the poem aspects of what we're listening to. But I kind of find like, and what I was thinking about this whole time was like, man, Pharaoh just keeps getting beat up because he can't let go, completely let go.
Yeah.
And I can think of times in my own life where, you know, like how many times I was like, well, I'm minimally going to get this out of the situation. Yeah. And because I held on to that little extra bit, it wasn't even close to worth it. I took more lumps trying to hold on to this thing instead of being like, I just need to let go. And I think in this story, though, I think for the long time, and I love the fact that we keep turning the gem, and in this situation, we are a little more focused on Pharaoh. Because every time I hear this story, I think of Pharaoh as the villain, and the focus of this story is Moses and what he's doing and the Israelites. Like those are almost commonly always my focus. But hearing you talk about it in this way, where we're talking about the hardened heart and talking about Pharaoh, there's so much to learn in that too. Also knowing Pharaoh is human, I think, is a big thing. Thinking about a human who's sitting in a situation, who's seeing the power of God being thrown right in front of him. But because of somewhere his upbringing, someone told him he was, you know, You know, told him he was the LeBron James of
Yep.
Egypt. He was
Yep.
handed a basketball when he
Yep.
was young, and you're going to be the king of the NBA at some point. We've been talking a lot about basketball
have.
through this, so I'm keeping the
March
through line.
Madness.
Little March Madness. But, like, you've been told this whole time.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, there is so much to learn from Pharaoh in this story about who we are,
Yep.
about things we were told that we were young, that maybe we need to learn how to let go
Yep.
a lot more
Yep.
to be able to see the beauty of God around us.
Yep. And the focus is, yes, and the focus is worship.
Hmm.
Worship, 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 worship. Who do we give our allegiance to? And that's just a recurring theme.
Yeah.
All that Moses is asking, all that God is asking, is that they can go worship.
Yep.
Just let them go worship.
Going all the way back to the beginning,
Yep.
the very first ask,
Yep.
we would like to go
Let's
worship.
go worship.
All the way to the two ladies in the front of this story
Yep.
that, you know, saved the
Yep.
the sons.
Yep.
You know, it's all stems from just one. Can we go worship?
Can we just go worship? That's it. And Empire will not let you worship anything else than it. There's no room for worshiping anything else other than Empire. So
Think of the story if Pharaoh was like, "Yeah, go ahead."
oh yeah,
Like, yeah, that's totally fine.
Yep.
Go for it.
that
Do you need a space?
yeah. You don't even have to rent it. I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Have you seen that space over that hill? You know, I know the Smiths. You know, they live right over there. They'll let you use it. You know.
Yeah. I got some magicians who can provide some lighting and
Yeah,
haze
some-
for you for the for the worship.
Yeah, we have a band that we think would be great. We'll call Russ.
Yeah, we got Russ. He's got some friends. He'll come in.
He'll
It'll
come
be
in.
great.
It'll be really good. Yeah, that's awesome. We
Well,
can even live stream it if you want, so everybody
yeah,
can see it.
You know, it was a bit different then. It's the drawing of the parchment paper,
The
in real time.
hieroglyphics.
Yeah, Pro Presenter was a little different back then.
Oh, good stuff.
Well, this has
All
been
right.
this has been great, PD.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the most Hollywood. Like we talked about outside of the actual Easter story, the most Hollywoodized version of the Bible is this section, and I'm still finding, like, just sitting here talking to you with this, finding lots
Yeah.
of good stuff to pull out of
Yeah.
it, and hopefully you all are finding that as well. And I say this, and at the end, whenever the A team is here, that. Please bring your questions. We haven't received any questions yet.
Yeah, we love
so
to have
this
them.
this is a challenge. Throw a question out. Just throw one out. I would
Yep.
love to know, even if it's who first put baby powder on their hands and threw it up during an NBA game. Like I will look that up.
Nice work.
But please do. There's an email somewhere in front of the table here. It's Nina received those emails. It's our communications emails.
Yep.
And we'd just like to hear from you. We'd like to hear from you.
And maybe they're turning the gym a little bit differently, and would love to hear their version too, their interpretation.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I know what I'm hearing when I hear these stories, but
Yep.
what are you hearing?
Yep.
What is it that you are bringing into this? So,
Yep.
well, thank you, PD.
All right, man.
We'll see you. I think Sarah is going to be on here at some point, but we'll see you
pretty
soon
quick.
enough.
Yeah. How's your bracket doing?
I didn't do a bracket.
You're
this
so
year.
good. You're so lucky. I should not have done one.
I
It's
can't.
embarrassing.
It's always embarrassing for me, so I never do one. I also don't watch enough college basketball.
Yeah,
To
well.
make. I mean, I'm a very yeah, they sound cool.
It's not very Shalomi-ish for me.
Yeah.
Is that a verb?
I mean, it is now. It is now. All words are made up.
Yeah, that's right.
All right,
All right.
PD. Well, you have a good afternoon, sir.